Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of In the Prog Seat. We've got a kind of a new crew configuration here today. We've got Mr. Ken Golden from the Laser's Edge. We've got Niamh the Prog Nerd. And we've got Luis Nasser from Sonus Umbra. What's happening, everybody?
Okay.
You ready to talk some Canterbury?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We've just been, before we went live here, we've just been talking about what a hard kind of chore this was, trying to figure out our 5 favorite Canterbury albums. We tend to think of Canterbury, you know, it's like a British thing, a British term, or a place in the UK, right? And there's a whole bunch of bands that kind of started making music in the early to mid 70s that got deemed Canterbury. So I don't know if any one of us here wants to take a stab at what exactly is Canterbury. Ken, you were kind of talking about how nebulous the whole thing is. I don't know.
I mean, you know, there are the purists who sort of feel like, you know, the Wildflowers were the original band from Canterbury that split up and became Caravan and Soft Machine, and you know, and those guys, well, they spread out even further. You know, just, you know, you look at the family, you know, one of those old peep frame family trees, you know, and for me, there's sort of a whimsical pop influence in much of it, but not all of it, and also a jazz element, and it's just all sort of incorporated. You know, some improvisation. More like is more of a, I would say, more of a jazz rock influence as opposed to, let's say, a classical influence that some of the other bands like an ELP would have. Something, you know, and a lot of it stems from these original guys, you know, that were in the Wildflowers.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not as scholastic. I just tend to think of it like if Prog is played by Monty Python, you kind of get some of those elements.
Absolutely.
But Ken is right, because it is a lot of jazz rock. Without a doubt.
Particularly later on, once we're getting into the mid 70s or so, you know, I mean, I don't want to step on anybody's picks, so I don't want to single out a particular album, but you know, in my mind, there are certain albums that people call Canterbury, and I said, no, they're not Canterbury albums. They're jazz rock albums. They're, you know, they owe more to Mahavishnu and Return to Forever than they do, you know, something that they were doing much earlier on in their careers. So,
yep,
absolutely.
So cool. So we might as well get started here with our first pick of the day. So we'll each do our 5th pick, and we'll kind of go around and round. We'll have ladies first. So we'll have Niamh go first, then Ken, then Luis, then myself, and then we'll keep going around till we get to our top picks here.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I'll pick my first one. So I've got a copy here. So the self-titled Hatfield in the North record, probably my favorite out of the discography. I just think it's got a really strong start and conclusion. Musicianship is absolutely beautiful. I'm a big Richard Sinclair fan. His bass playing and vocal style is just fantastic. The musical arrangements and just especially the arrangements in the final part of the album, like, it's beautiful. And one of my favorite Canterbury albums. I mean, it was hard to pick 5, but this is definitely up there with my favorites.
Great choice.
It's one of the greats.
Yep.
Definitely one of the greats.
All right, Ken, what do you got?
I'm going, my number 5, that 5 is kind of tough. So it gets easier as you go up. But I'm going with Egg, the Polite Force. These are my props. No signage this time. Just original album covers. I actually think I have a couple of copies of this. So it's the 2nd album from Egg. And for me, that was kind of like the Dave Stewart show. And Dave Stewart is very integral, I think, to the Canterbury sound. I mean, his organ style, there is a Canterbury sound. A lot of it has to do with the organ. You know, Mike Ratledge running it through one, you know, fuzz box. And if I remember correctly, if I did my homework, Mike Ratledge was playing a Lowry organ. Dave Stewart was playing a Hammond organ, but also he was playing a lot of clean stuff where he sounds like Keith Emerson, really, on this album. There are parts, the more classically influenced parts, where he sounds very much like Emerson, and other parts where he's going through all this distortion and he sounds more like Mike Ratledge and Dave Stewart. it's a great album. I wouldn't say it's my number 5. It's not anywhere further up than that. There's some kind of annoying parts. There's this one piece called Bollock, which is like a long experimental piece that kind of get into like music concrete. But, you know, killer playing. Mon Campbell's vocals don't annoy me. Some of these guys, you know, the vocals could be a little disturbing. But no, I think it's one of the greats. So that's my number 5.
Good choice.
Well, to continue with, and by the way, it is nearly impossible for me to actually number them because I like all of these a lot. But I'm just going to start with one. And I only have a definite one, which to me is
a college professor. Come on.
No, I'm not going to number them. This is everything. Everything is a race. I'm not going to do a race. But for me, speaking of Dave Stewart, National Health, and of Cues and Cures, I love this record. I absolutely love this record. National Health. I can't say enough good things about this album. I love it.
It's in my top 5. I won't tell you where yet.
This is amazing. This is just, what can I say?
I saw National Health 2 or 3 times. In 1979, they came over to the U.S. Dave Stewart was already out of the band.
Okay.
And Alan Gowan was in the band. I saw them at the Squat Theater, and I saw them at my father's place out on Long Island. But
wait, rewind. The Squat Theater?
Squat Theater owned by Andy Warhol. It was on West 23rd Street. I saw Etron Fowler Lublin there. There used to be a lot of crazy shows going on there. Very experimental, a lot of experimental theater. And National Health played there with Fall Mountain opening up. Bob Ostertag. That was like an extreme noise fest. That was bizarre, but they were great. You know, even Gowan was a great piano player. I mean, he was a great keyboard player. Very different than Dave Stewart, and he wasn't schlepping the organ around the country. He was playing electric piano. But you know, it was basically the Cues and Cures tour, and they were doing all that stuff. They were incredible.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Man, Phil Miller makes the best faces when he plays, man.
Well, it's my number 5 as well. I happen to have this National Health Complete, which has all their albums on here. Yeah, I mean, Of Cues and Cures is awesome. I'm a big Phil Miller fan, great guitar player. I think one of the reasons why I like this band so much is that they're not that far removed from the normal jazz rock stuff that I really like, even though, you know, there are parts of this album that go a little out there. You know, the Bryden 2-step is a little avant-garde, right? But, you know, you got the Calypso is awesome. Square from Maud is great. Binoculars, just great stuff. Dave Stewart, I mean, we're going to talk about him this whole episode, I'm sure. Pete Pardo, I mean, all the greats are on here, and just such a fantastic band. It's just a shame that a lot of these classic Canterbury bands didn't really last that long. You know, you have a couple albums, that's it. But there's some greatness on here.
Does Complete have the Virgin demos on that also?
Yeah, all the way at the end.
Because the Virgin demos were kind of cool. That's Bill Bruford was in the band. That was, and I was a big tape trader in the 70s and 80s, and the Virgin demos were circulating, so we got to hear all that stuff. And I remember Binoculars was originally had Richard Sinclair on vocals, and it was called Legend in His Own Lunchtime. And that was the original title, Binoculars. But it was
good stuff.
That's my number. I'll reveal that's my number 2 album. So.
So you talk more about it when we get there. Okay, cool.
I will. I'll get to it.
All right, Niamh, back to you.
All right. Well, we were talking about Mike Ratledge earlier, so I'm going to put it in 4th by Soft Machine. Took me a long time to get into Soft Machine, probably why I like them so much now, because when I find that bands are harder to get into, I like them a lot more eventually. But I love the just jazz explosion in this album. The drumming sounds amazing. Production is also great on this. The saxophone sections are beautiful. I love a good saxophone in music. It just really makes me want to play music like this and make music like this at some point. And it was just an outstanding album to me. It blew me away more than Third did, actually, which was the first Soft Machine album I heard. But the playing on this album, fantastic. Yeah. I found that this one was just my favorite as soon as I heard it.
I'm with her. I mean, honestly, I know it's sacrilege, and Steve Feigenbaum will never talk to me again. But third for me, although it's an important album, I like 4 better.
Yeah, I preferred
4 is
4.
great.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, but
This call will be declined.
You are a popular man.
So, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Spam. I was getting a spam call. Sorry. It happens.
It happens. That's a good choice, Niamh. I mean, you got to have the Soft Machine on here somewhere, and they got so many great albums.
Important band.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
all right, Ken, back to you.
Okay, my number 4. Again, I think it's going to be some sacrilege here. Steve Hillage, Fish Rising.
Great album. I love that.
Great album. And personally, I like this better than the Teapot trilogy, than the Gong albums.
I am with you.
David Allen, with all due respect, he was my least favorite aspect of Gong. This was the best parts of Gong. It had the Gong members and it had Dave Stewart. I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, the way I think of it is that Gong was more of a space rock band. Sure, they're part of the Canterbury canon, but this is more rooted in Earth. I mean, it gets, when Miquette is doing all this spacey synthesizers and stuff, it's got that element, but it's got a more down and dirty feel to it. His guitar, when Dave Stewart is prominent on it, again, he's being Dave Stewart, and and he's not being Tim Blake. Yeah, I just think this is just a killer album. And I was talking about, I saw Steve Hillage open up for Electric Light Orchestra, Madison Square Garden, 1977, my first concert, and I was very high, and it was a great show. It was a great show, man.
Very nice.
I saw Steve Hillage when he opened for Queen at Hyde Park in 1976, where there was like fighting going on in the crowd because there was a football match day before, and he was trying to tell people to calm down. He was like, "Guys, I'm gonna stop playing unless you guys stop fighting," and they just carried on until he left.
Is this a video or you were there?
No, I wasn't there. My dad was.
Oh, okay. I was thinking, man,
really
age great.
Oh,
congrats.
She's got a time machine.
Yeah. Who knows?
She do that. No, I mean, he had, when I saw him, he had Christian Boulez on rhythm guitar. He had Clive Bunker on drums, Jethro Tull's band. And oh man, it was Phil Hodges on keyboards also, I think it was. And Hillage was on this huge stage, Madison Square Garden, and he was playing he had a pyramid because it was the L tour. And that was, he was playing underneath this giant pyramid that was hanging above it. He was just strutting around stage, and he just blew my mind. He was, man,
sure.
ELO too, also, by the way. They're pretty good.
I love ELO. I'm a big fan.
But anyway, Fish Rising for me is like the best Gong album.
Right. I kind of agree with you completely with that, by the way. And I know it's going to make me a lot of enemies, but I agree with you.
Thank you.
I could not find the copy of the next album I wanted to show, but I'm gonna use a different prop because I think that the Muffins Mirage is a great album, but I can't find it. But I'm gonna show instead the copy of Mirage, the Dave Newhouse band, Face. I have this handy. Mm-hmm. Mirage by the Muffins, or Mirage, the band that Dave Newhouse has. Great band. If people are not familiar with the Muffins, I think you should. They're one of my favorites for this sort of sound. This jazzy, rocky, quirky.
Sadly missed, right? I mean, geez.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw
I used to hang with Paul Sears all the time in Baltimore.
His ego is just like,
and then he went, I think it's the desert, man. He had a bad desert experience. There was the sun, something happened.
Peyote,
high potency peyote. Yeah, something went wrong. But I love Paul, and I love, you know, all of these guys. Dave, I love the band. They're great fun, and I had the opportunity to just play music with them a couple of times, and it's so much fun. So, and I just love the record, but I can't find it. The only one I could find, which is not my all-time favorite, is Double Negative. Like, I have a lot of my records missing. I don't know what's happening to my collection. I have to organize myself. But I brought this out, so I don't know if Dave's watching, but I love this record also. It's really, really good. And Mirage Muffins.
They played at Nearfest once, like really early on, didn't they?
They did.
Yep.
Did. And Paul, even, I think, I don't know if it was the same time or another time, he also played with Prasant. He was the dude with the kilt hitting the bar.
That's correct, yes.
But yeah. So
in 1978, there was a festival in New York City called the Zoo Festival, Zoo Manifestival, I think it was. And David Allen played, and if I'm not mistaken, the Muffins played it. It was supposed to be like a 24-hour concert, and there were all these New York underground bands playing there. I think even Glenn Branca might have played there at one point. And I'm pretty sure the Muffins played it at that. At least that's what I think. I didn't go. I remember, not that I was too young, but couldn't get anybody to go into Manhattan with me and spend 24 hours in, watching all these bands. So I heard it was quite. Yeah, and Zoo was like a forerunner to Material, the band Material.
Yes.
And yeah, and so it was like the Zoo Festival or the Zoo Manifestival, something like that. So, and I know Muffins played at it. So yeah, they're a cat. I mean, they got the sound, boy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right, the U.S. band just kind of emulating that.
Yes, they're just great. It's just so much fun. The Adventures of Captain Boomerang. This is my favorite song of that album. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Very cool.
But I can't find it, so I had to use the other prop.
Well, I seem to be copying everybody today, but I'm going to go Fish Rising, my number 4, for all the reasons that Ken said. It's a fantastic album. I agree with you. I'd listen to this way more than I listen to any Gong stuff. And I mean, Solar Music Suite, Cinnamon Song, I mean, just legendary tracks. I love the guitar playing on here, the riffs, the solos, the kind of ethereal, futuristic keyboards, the vocals. I mean, the whole thing just really works for me. And I think it's just a magical, magical album. And one of the great unsung guitar heroes of the 70s right there.
Correct.
Oh, yeah. His biggest problem with him was, when he got, he put together System 7, he stopped doing rock music, and then he got into production, and he made a career as a producer. Yeah. So I guess, he found his calling, I guess. Yep. So it's a shame. I mean, he should be making albums now. I don't know, bring back, put the boys back together, bring the band back together.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. So
right, back to you, number 3, right?
So listen, I'm gonna go out of sequence only because Luis called up an American band.
Well, hold on, let Niamh go first, Ken.
Go ahead. Oh, did I go out? I don't want to go out.
Ken is so excited for that number 3.
Go. My apologies.
No worries, but talking about Egg earlier, my choice is the self-titled Egg record. This was the first one I discovered this through, I think, the Prog Rock Britannia documentary, because I think Mont Campbell did like a feature on there, and I was just interested because there was a band called Egg, which interested me. But I found that this album was a lot more classically inspired rather than the typical kind of jazzy side of the Canterbury stuff. The bass playing is so great. As a bassist myself, it was very infectious. I felt like picking up and jamming along. It was a very kind of grand sound for 3 people on this album as well. Just beautiful piano playing as well. I used to play piano quite a lot, and I was big into classical music at one point. So having like just some added like bass and stuff like that just really interested me, and I loved it a lot. And it was one of the first Canterbury Scene albums I fell in love with.
Cool, great record.
It's a great album. It was hard. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the third album, Civil Surface, but for me, it was hard to choose between the first Egg and the second. So yeah. I think that's a great choice. It has more of a classical element to me. It was more almost like a warped version of the Nice, something like that.
I love their adaptation of the Bach piece. It's
yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
I was surprised the first time I heard that, actually. So keep it in the plastic shrimp. It's worth a lot of money.
He knows what he's talking about.
He certainly does.
I'll listen to that advice.
I'm doing
All right, Ken, now your third pick. Go for it.
All right, I'll go to my third pick. I'll save my honorable mention. I'll stay in sequence. So my third pick is Hatfield and North, the Rotters Club.
Great.
So, I mean, it was a 50-50 choice, right?
Yeah. The first in that.
And for me, the Rotters Club, I just like it better. I like the songs better. And, you know, to me, that's like, it's like the quintessential Canterbury album. It's got this weird factor to it. It's got the sounds that you expect from a Canterbury album. You got the guys from Henry Cow on there. You got, you know, the Northettes, Amanda Parsons, who, you know, you hear her later on, you know, on the first National Health album. If you were going to define what is a Canterbury album, this is it. I mean, this has got all the elements, all the sounds. It's just great playing. Just, it's got that jazz rock side. It's got that total weirdness to it. I mean, the vocals are just kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's a great record. You know, Richard Sinclair is kind of a strange vocalist. He's not a particularly good vocalist, but I can't stop listening to him.
Yeah, it works with the music.
Yeah, I mean,
that's exactly right. It's the vocals is the trickiest thing, right? For any band, there will always be people who are going to say, "I hate the singer." Other people love the singer. It's less visceral, the other instruments than the vocalist. Usually, is my experience. People are very opinionated about vocalists, more so than they are about, man, that drummer's cymbals are not in tune with the rest of the stuff. Nobody cares about that, but everybody cares about the singer.
See, like when we talk, here it was when we're talking about vocals in Canterbury, you know, I'm not a big fan of David Allen's vocals.
That's right.
And I know I'm going to be crucified for saying this. I'm not a big fan of Robert Wyatt's vocals. So he's very wispy, very light and ethereal. And it's just not, you know, great drummer. And his vocals are not the aspect of him as a musician that draws me towards him. You know, it would be the compositions, it would be the playing, not his singing. Although, you know, I'm a believer, it's kind of cool. But, you know, people love his voice. And for me, it's the same thing talking about Richard Sinclair. Although Richard Sinclair he's more melodic. He's kind of, again, he's got that sort of ethereal quality. It's kind of plain in a way, but somehow he just makes it work. It just fits in whatever band he's in. You know, if it was Caravan, Hatfield in the North, Camel, somehow, you know, Richard Sinclair vocal, yeah, I'm in. What the hell? I don't know why, but I just like his voice. It's not strong, but I like his voice.
Yeah, I don't mind him either.
Yeah. He's kind of nondescript.
Yeah, his voice isn't great, but it kind of fits the music. It's there, right? It's like, and you don't like it.
But you know, if you throw Ian Gillan there, it would sound ridiculous, right?
Can you imagine?
So that's the thing. It's like, and Ian Gillan is possibly my favorite vocalist of all time.
Same here.
But you know, you're not going to ask him to do those tunes, right? It just would not work. Right? In the same way that you can't ask Richard Sinclair to do Speed King.
Right.
He's not gonna, or Child in Time. I mean,
Ian tried it on those first couple of Ian Gillan band albums.
Hey, you know who would work? You know who I could throw in that would work? Greg Lake would have worked.
Yeah.
Because Greg
Lake can do anything, though. I mean, he could have
in the 70s. He was the voice of God. And
yeah,
he could have done it. So, you know, but Ian Gillan, I don't think so.
No.
That'd be funny.
All right. So my number 3. I have to go with a man whose work is very near and dear to my heart. I'm talking, of course, of trumpet player Ian Carr and the band Nucleus.
Yeah.
I love that guy's work. Not only is he a musical, in my opinion, a prodigy, but also a scholar. He was a professor of music.
He's a great writer.
yeah, I think he had this way of his style of playing and the melodies that he created is very unique to my ear. I just really, really, really instantly like everything he does. So I just thought I couldn't possibly do a show on this subject without mentioning Nucleus and Ian Carr. And I had a hard time picking a record, of course, because they're, you know, I really like all of them. But for this one, I think I am going to have to go with, I should have brought my glasses, but where is this one? Is this the one? Elastic Rock. Yeah, Elastic Rock. This is from a box set that I can't, I got this little box set. So it doesn't have the original cover, but it's such a brilliant album. But so for people who don't know Ian Carr and Nucleus, I would very highly recommend that you spend some time with any one of these albums. You know, these are all fantastic. You know, they're just great albums. I can write them all up for anybody who's curious, and I'm sure that Ken can hook you up with at least a couple of these at some point. But this is great stuff.
Belladonna.
Yep.
So Ian Carr for me is just one of my musical heroes, and I love everything he's ever been on. So
see, I stayed away from the Nucleus albums because to me, and they're essential. You have to own those Nucleus albums.
Right.
But to me, they owe more to the early ones. Owe more to like Bitches Brew, and less to like Canterbury. They're jazz rock albums. To me,
they are, but they have also
that weird factor, you know.
But they have that kind of, you know, happy melody, that jumpy vibe.
Right.
They do. Yeah. So I you know, because I just thought I'm gonna have to throw these guys in there because to me they're not really. I guess you could argue that they're certainly just a jazz fusion band or a jazz band even, but they have that quirkiness.
Yeah.
You know, they do have that. There's that ease to just putting melodies together that don't belong.
Pete, you know these albums?
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, Belladonna, Alan Holdsworth. I mean,
I was just going to say, for those interested, Alan Holdsworth, the very young Alan Holdsworth, appeared on it very early.
He's killing on it. He's just killing on that album.
Yeah.
So, and Soft Machine. Well, you know, Mike Ratledge, he stole all the guys from Nucleus gradually. And they all, you know, basically Soft Machine became, you know, was really Nucleus.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, those are really good albums. I mean, he kind of was like the British, like Miles Davis there for a while, right?
Great trumpet player.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Scottish.
Yeah.
And he always had great players surrounding him.
Yes.
The best of the best. Hey, the one you like, the one Elastic Rock, isn't that with Chris? Is that one with Chris Spedding?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I think so. Yes.
Wasn't Chris on like two of them? I think.
Yes. I don't have my glasses, but I think you're right.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are mandatory albums right there.
So you know.
All right.
It was going to be for me between this one or Forga's band, which is also kind of a jazz band. But, you know, Adele and Jose put them into their Canterbury film, right? So this guy's, you know, so this is like I'm doing the mulligan, the Forga's band Phenomena, you know.
Great band.
That's like the jazz rock segment to this. And to me, this album, any Forga's band album is ridiculously awesome.
Yeah.
You have Cocktail? Do you have Cocktail? That's good.
Yes. So, you know, but I don't know. To me, that whole jazz element of Canterbury is not just jazz. It has to have a quirkiness to it. It has to have a happiness to the melody. It has to have a very British kind of. I mean, I know Forga's band is French, but it has to have a very kind of quirky characteristic to the way that the melody is dancing around the chords. And to me, they do have. If they're not straight up Canterbury, they're certainly either influencers of or influenced by, in the case of Forgas.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's my only mulligan of the night, I promise.
Okay. Everybody gets a mulligan. All right, my next choice has also been picked already. I like Ken mentioned, I had a really tough time with the 2 Hatfield albums, and I was like, literally right before we started taping, I'm like, Rotters or this, and I decided just to go with the first one. I think because the first album is a little slightly less weird. Not that I dislike weird, but the second album is a little weirder than this one. This one is a little more straight, and I don't even know if you can call it straightforward because it's not.
No.
But a lot of good, cool little quirky interludes and some longer pieces. I love the jazzy feel of this album. Vocals are good. It's just a very pleasing to the ears album, and one of those albums I think that never gets old, and as time goes on you appreciate it more and more. Just a classic of this whole thing we're calling Canterbury here. Hatfield in the North, self-titled. Back to Niamh.
Can't argue with that.
All right, so there we go. Classic Canterbury, Land Growing Pink. Probably one of the first Canterbury scene albums I heard because my dad showed it to me. Just a brilliant album from start to finish. It's so painfully English, and I love it for that reason. Like, it's just amazingly English. Again,
you better say that, Niamh.
It's the way she says it too.
Great, like charismatic vocals that I love a lot. I love the 9 Feet Underground long track on this album. I listened to it just before I came in here. It blows me away every time I hear it. Just the beautiful guitar effects, bass lines, and just the kind of dynamics within the track. So at some points it's quite quiet and soft, and then other times it's like exploding into this massiveness of Canterbury awesomeness. And it's beautifully put together. One of my favorite albums ever. Me and my dad just we think that the cover looks like Hobbiton, so that's another reason we love it.
It's funny that you mentioned the hyper English because I had that also in my stack, but I want to use a different one. But this is the only CD that I have that actually deliberately makes this known to you. Disc made in England.
There you go.
I really like. I am drawn towards things that are painfully English. I don't know. I just love it.
Why not?
And all those CDs made in England, they all turned bronze after about 10 years.
I in that case, I let me see.
Replace all. I think I had to replace all.
I may have to give you a call for. Yeah.
Can't argue with Land the Growing Pink.
Oh yeah, and that album cover, man, it's just the artwork is just spectacular. Spectacular.
So, right, don't give that back to your dad.
No, that's just
that's a keeper.
Yeah.
It's coming with me to uni.
There you go.
Is it my turn?
Yep.
All right, so I brought in a ringer. So this is what my third choice. Soft Machine Triple Echo. You can hear crickets now.
Yeah, what is that?
So Soft Machine Triple Echo is actually a 3-album compilation that came out around I think it was 1977. And it was actually the first Soft Machine album I ever bought. And I think all of it has been released by now, but at the time when it came out, it had unreleased material, had some BBC sessions. And it was a real comprehensive overview of Soft Machine up through, I think Softs, I'm pretty sure there's tracks from Softs on here. The thing with Soft Machine is there's different periods of Soft Machine. So how do you really pick? I mean, for me, the first 2 albums, I respect them. I recognize their importance in the overall Canterbury and Prog, canon. But for me, they're not my favorite albums. They're a little too poppy, a little too much of that quirky pop. Soft Machine third is a groundbreaking album, but it's not my favorite. As Niamh was saying, she prefers 4. I prefer 4. And slowly, Soft Machine became Nucleus is what they became. They became a jazz rock band. By the time Bundles, they were a jazz rock band, and they weren't, to my opinion, not a Canterbury band. Particularly Softs, that had nothing to do with Canterbury and much more to do with jazz rock fusion. The thing about Triple Echo, as I said, this was where I got my first taste of the band. I bought this at Corvette's in I think it was 1977. And it kind of blew my mind because it was all over the place, but there was stuff from the, you know, the Numbers albums, you know, tracks like Teeth, Bone, Kings and Queens. I mean, I had never heard anything like it. And for me, not for anybody else, but for me, this is the great Soft Machine album to own. And certainly it's a great entree into the band. The only downside is it never got reissued on CD. I don't know that it's particularly expensive. It's a vinyl only thing. And if it comes with a beautiful booklet, if I recall, I haven't cracked this thing open in a long time. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's kind of a cheat because Soft Machine has to be somewhere on everybody's list, I think.
Yes.
But as I said, I wouldn't pick the first or second albums. Typically, I think most people maybe pick the third, but it's not my favorite. So 4, 5, 6, 7, they're great albums. But as we move along, it's becoming less, to me, less Canterbury and more, I hate to say generic, because clearly that, you know, we had Mike Ratledge's, you know, we had that organ sound going throughout. But then, you know, once Carl Jenkins took over more and more in the band, particularly by the time of Bundles, they were a different band. They were a very different band. So for me, Triple Echo, I know I'm babbling, but Triple Echo is a good entree into the band. And for me, that was my number 3 pick.
Cool. Never even knew that existed. Man.
Yeah, I never heard of it either.
Yeah.
See?
That's
yeah,
wild.
It's possible that there are things on there still that haven't gotten a proper release. I'm not sure. Like they have, was Moon and June, there's I think a BBC version, so it's not the sidelong version that's on third. It's I think like 13 minutes long, but you know, it's also a better recording too, because Soft Machine, as we all know, Soft Machine third sounds like ass. So, you know.
It's yeah. But it's so good that all is forgiven. Like good ass.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
All right. Well, for me, this is a really, really special record that I love. I tend to like everything that this man plays on. And of course, I mean, Khan, Space Shanty.
Mm.
I love this record.
Yeah.
And Dave Stewart, again, you know, can, for my money, can do no wrong when it comes to this. So this is just an amazing album. And I love it. So Khan, Space Shanty, brilliant record. And it has Steve Hillage too. So that was, you know, I had picked Fish Rising, but then I thought, well, you know, this, at least I can give it a little shout out. I had also, you know, Holdsworth, I have Hillage. So, you know, this is a beautiful record.
I agree. That was in my original 5, and I pulled it out the last minute for something else. I love it.
It didn't make my top 5 only because I've owned it for 40 years, but it's probably the one I'm the least familiar with. I can't tell you why. Just, you know.
I just, to me, that's probably the one of the ones that I play the most. For again, it just like you know, it connected really deeply with me.
Very passionate about this. I can tell.
Gotta have it, right?
Gotta have it.
Gotta have it. This is a no-brainer for me. This is a fantastic album. I'm kind of late to the Caravan thing. I only started listening to them, you know, more extensively over the last couple of years. But I mean, from the album artwork to 9 Feet Underground, Winter Wine, I mean, just that organ from Mr. Sinclair on this album is just absolutely brilliant. Pye Hastings, you know, great vocals and guitar work. It's just a really, really good album, a classic of the genre. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the earliest one out of all the ones we've talked about so far, right?
Yeah.
Have we gone earlier than 71 yet? I don't think
so. That's the third album, you know?
Yeah. So, but yeah, absolutely legendary album. And again, another release that if you were to look up in the dictionary, Canterbury,
yeah, this
probably comes up, right?
And the name Pye Hastings doesn't get more English than that.
I know, right?
Pye with a Y, Pye Y-E. This is like, come on. This dude has to be from the United Kingdom somewhere, right?
Somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
The Knights they need. So.
All right, we are at our number one. Are we at number one already?
No, number two.
Number two?
We're number two.
Oh, I'm at one.
I think we're at one. I think you had a senior moment that you did 2 3s.
We did. Oh, I don't know. I got my second and first here.
Oh,
so I think we're on number two. No,
I've only got one left.
Yeah, me too.
Wow. Then I'm gonna go twice.
Yeah.
For you all.
That's right.
I'm getting my time. You're not cheating me, Pete. There's no way. Hey man. You know, for what I'm paying to appear.
There you go. All right, so Ken, you're number two.
All right. So my number two is National Health of Cues and Cures. And I won't belabor it much other than to say that I think that it's just, well, as reasons I told you, having seen the band, and I will tell one quick story. I actually got thrown out of Innovative Audio in Brooklyn demoing this album. We turned the amp up to 11, and the salesman came rushing into the sound room, and he said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he threw us out of the store. So that was my National Health of Cues and Cures story, but but it's a true story. And
at least you were playing that, and not like Slayer, Hell Awaits or something like that.
No. You think about it, I mean. The thing is, like the first National Health album, as great as it is, that could almost be like a Hatfield and North album. This one is a little quirkier. You had John Greaves on vocals. You had Georgie Bourne on cello. It had more of its own identity, I think, than the first album. As great as the first album is, I mean, Tenemos Roads. I mean, what's better than that, But Dreams Wide Awake, one of the great organ solos. I mean, if Dave Stewart didn't really destroy the organ, it sure as hell sounds like he did. And this is like a growl album for me. I love it. But I got one more that I like even more. So we'll save that. So my number one.
I'm because I feel like I'm having a senior moment. So I think I realize how we got kind of screwed up with yours. So I think you threw out an honorable mention.
Oh, I haven't done my honorable mention.
All right, because you did Fish Rising.
Pete, I'm loaded.
You did the Rotters Club. You did the Egg album. And what was
Triple Echo?
And Triple Echo. That's 4.
I got Hatfield and North Rotters Club.
Yeah.
I did Triple Echo. Now National Health, right? And I've saved my number one. So when you're ready for my number one, when it's my turn.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Niamh, go for it.
I played by the rules.
I'm so confused.
We've talked about it already, but this is my number one. I also have a very big attachment with this album. Just a beautiful album. I'm a big Steve Hillage fan as well, and Dave Stewart fan. Just amazing keyboards player. Never heard anything like it. It's that Canterbury sound. I remember listening to this. I had no idea it was a Canterbury album. I was like, wait, this keyboards, it sounds quite familiar. This sound. Then I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is a Canterbury scene. And it's just a great album. I just love the guitar playing. Hollow Stone is one of my favorite songs at the moment. I've been listening to it over and over. Yes. So this was just a fab album. I really love it. I got this recently into my collection, so I'm glad about that.
A lot of fans of that album out there. I've talked to so many people over the years who just adore that album, and it's a great one. It absolutely is.
I'm gonna break it out tonight.
Man.
As I said, I don't know why. I've owned it forever, and of all the albums we were talking about and playing, it's the one I'm the least familiar with. I don't know why. Just
that's your homework.
Village, just ripping it up.
Oh yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
All right, Ken, now you're number one.
And now my number one?
Yes.
Well, okay, it's kind of obvious. So, Land of Gray and Pink. So, this to me is the perfect Canterbury album. The first side, you have all those great, quirky pop songs. Richard, Golf Girl, that's like the quintessential, Canterbury pop piece. Winter Wine is great. I mean, the whole first side, it's not the tracks I go to, but they're all great. And 9 Feet on the Ground, for me, within the realm of Canterbury, that's the greatest of them all. That's, nothing is better than 9 Feet on the Ground. It's the total package. I mean, it's got the sound.
A drink to that.
There you go. It's got the sound. It's got the playing. It's got the dynamics. And, Pi Hastings' vocals on that track, they blow me away. And then the thing just explodes. I love this album, man. And just I removed, just on your honor, I removed the price sticker from when I bought it at the Music Box in Queens on Union Turnpike. It had a $2.99 price sticker on my original British pressing, and nice and minty that I've kept it all these years. And I figured, well, it would be in bad taste to hold it up with a price sticker on it, so I removed it. And this is the Desert Island disc for me when we're talking about Canterbury. This is the one. And if you could fight me about it, but you'd be wrong.
Nobody's gonna fight you over it.
Right. I do have an honorable mention when it's my time. I will.
Cool. I'm gonna go ahead with my number one, which was, I guess now, in honor of Niamh's T-shirt, and just the fact that this was the record that really made me sit up and listen to this whole genre. Speaking, of course, of Soft Machine Third. And again, is the recording the best recording? Hell no. Is the singing, stretching the boundaries of tonality? Absolutely. But you know what? It is such an incredible, ensemble performance that it's one of those records where if people tell you they hate it, I'm not going to defend it. I don't care what they think. I know what I'm hearing. And it takes a while, but once it actually happens, it's the gift that keeps on giving, man. It really is. I mean, if you just sit in the dark with no other distractions, with headphones, and listen to this thing,
you'll get a headache. But
I spent a very, very good evening. I mean, I don't have a super hi-fi system like you can. So a lot of the things that would make you cringe, that are revealed in all the splendor of your system, are not available to me because I'm broke. But this record, just the compositions and the improvisations, for me, they're just brilliant.
Well, the thing that's amazing, really, is to think about the transformation from the second album into that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like
a different band, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and this was the thing that made me not only listen to Soft Machine and take them more seriously, but to then actually go back and investigate the catalog of other bands, Gilgamesh and all the others. I started to pay attention to the whole genre as a result of this album. So for me, this album, Soft Machine Third, is my number one.
Fantastic.
Now, could you imagine if that album, that band, was the one that opened up for Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah, right.
Then you're talking about a different story altogether, right?
Yes.
Not that hippie drippy stuff from the first two albums.
Right.
That's right.
Imagine. He would have thrown him off the tour.
I know, he totally would have, right? Well, I'm going to pull a mulligan for my number one. I got a tie here because I just couldn't decide because I love both of these albums so much. It's by the same band. Soft Machine Third and Bundles. I kind of agree with Ken's opinion on Bundles, but I just love it so much, and it's still Salt Machine in name, and man, Holdsworth is just so incredible on it. But I do want to say a few things about Third. This is, I remember when I first heard this album, I didn't like it at all. I mean, this is like a dissonant, caustic, just aggressive, batch of noise for the first time you ever hear it. And then you keep listening to it, and all of a sudden you're like, well, this all really makes perfect sense now. Is it still noisy and dissonant and caustic and all that? Yes. But This is like an avant-garde jazz album that still has that kind of quirky element, and I love it. I mean, man, Facelift, Moon and June, Out Bloody Rages. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So amazing. The organ stuff on here is just absolutely out of control. The drumming, just a great, great album. And then you go from that to an absolutely gorgeous album. Yes. I mean, this is just, I mean, Hazard Profile, Holdsworth on the SG, unleashing into one of my favorite solos of all time. From, I mean, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I just said it a couple days ago. My favorite Holdsworth appearance on an album ever is Believe It by the Tony Williams Lifetime. But coming close, number 2 is this bad boy right here.
Alan Holdsworth, to me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, Alan Holdsworth to me, and I'm telling you, Pete, you're a guitarist. I'm a nothing. But Alan Holdsworth was the greatest sideman. He couldn't write a song for shit, but he couldn't. I mean, he just couldn't. I mean, you know, you think of his solo albums, but think about everything he did as a sideman. Unbelievable, you know, in UK, I mean, Tempest, all of it. I mean, forget about Higginbottom's Wrench, but, you know, but seriously, I mean, you know, his solo albums, I mean, they were technically amazing, but they were kind of, to me, they were kind of boring, you know, but boy, Bundles.
I mean, you're almost mimicking what I said the other day on the Tony Williams Lifetime show that I did. It's like, to me, I love his solo albums. I do, because they're technically amazing. The solos are incredible and all that. But I prefer and love even more all those great albums that he appeared on as a sideman or a band member. Jean-Luc Ponty, Enigmatic Ocean, the 2 Lifetime albums, the Soft Machine album, the Gong album, the Tempest album, the stuff he did with the Johansson brothers. I mean, you know, all these appearances that he's had over the years are incredible. It's almost like, you know, he shows up and it's a different Holdsworth, as opposed to him trying to fill every nuance and crack of the music with all these different guitar tones and all that kind of stuff, which is his solo albums. And I love the solo albums, don't get me wrong, but my favorite albums with him are his appearances on other people's albums.
To me, when he was a solo artist, it was, you know, seeing him live many times, it was always like the tunes, like, you know, the tunes were just there to set up the solo. You know, you had, you know, and it just, yeah, kind of bored me, especially when Paul Williams was in the band. You know, Paul would be out there and then he would disappear, and Alan would, you know, unleash holy hell, and then Paul would come back on stage. Okay, the tune's over. You know,
he'll sing his couple verses, then he'll disappear.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. You know, yeah. Not, you know, Leonardo's going to take out a contract on me for saying all this.
I was thinking exactly that. I was imagining Leonardo thinking. He's cursing in Croatian. He's having a conniption. Yeah, absolutely.
And Anthony Ferraro is like closing his Laser's Edge account right now. You know,
I think that you can do no wrong in that man's book. But
what about your book?
You know, I don't necessarily agree, but I do see what you're saying. But I have a different interpretation of why it is like that. I think that, you know, and it's not that you can compare them, but there is a similarity between an Alan Holdsworth and a Mike Keneally, in that their musical brains are just so unique, right?
Yep.
That when you put Alan Holdsworth into somebody else's musical context, he will make it sound incredible, because he is going to articulate those chord progressions in the Holdsworth way, right? When he is writing the tune, the other people that are with him are expected to actually be at his level. And he's always been surrounded by great musicians.
Yeah, sure.
But they don't think like him. Mm. And as a result, you get that sensation, because they are not able to, because I don't even know how the hell you would be able to do what he does in a more rhythmic context in order to then make the soloing be even more powerful, because it does make a huge difference. And that's the thing that he does. Whenever he touches somebody else's music, it's like secret rocket sauce. But when he has a different band, and he's had the best, right? He's had nothing but great people.
Sure.
they just don't think about music like him.
Who thinks about music the way he thinks? Nobody.
Exactly. So that's a problem. Because you know, it's the same thing with Keneally, who's a guy who I greatly admire, who's actually I'm lucky to call a good friend. The way he thinks about music is just so different from other people that you're always playing catch up, you know, and it's just difficult. It's very difficult to I had the opportunity to play music with Mike Keneally once. We did a tribute show for Keith Emerson here in Chicago, and he picked out a bunch of tunes that we had to play, that going all the way back to the Nice and things like that. And on just simply watching Mike play, you know, Trilogy on the piano, after having watched the guy that played it with us, he doesn't play like a normal pianist. He doesn't, you know, his hands don't move like a normal pianist, but he can do it. So this is what I'm talking about. Just the way that he thinks about how the chord leading, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is just, it doesn't work the same way for these kinds of humans as it does for the rest of us. And you can tell, right? So while I agree with you that a lot of the Holdsworth albums do tend to have that quality that, okay, there's a tune because I'm going to solo and I'm going to blow your mind. I think that part of it is it's not set up with that mentality. This is my observation.
Yeah.
Because you can't do it. It's like if the guy could actually play everything in the moment, like in spirit, and if he could become multiple doppelgangers of himself, then maybe, right? And I'm not throwing shade on anybody in his band, because these are incredible musicians in every way, better than I'll ever be. But I'm just saying, you just don't think about music like that, you know?
Well, there are a lot of musicians that just don't think the way other musicians think.
Yeah.
But they're not, but they're sympathetic. They kind of blend. It's like harmony singing, right? Some people, you put them together, they sound great. You put them with different singers, they don't work anymore. I don't know how to explain it, but it just there's a quality to how the communication happens. And with Holdsworth, it's just so unique.
He was from another planet. Yeah. I mean,
so if you saw UK live with Alan Holdsworth, raise your hand.
Never saw him.
1978, Mars stage.
That must have been pretty amazing.
I can
amazing. You know, Alan thing with him, he always kind of hung out in the back, really, you know, and then he would just unleash these solos that, like, you know, that would just, you know, face melting solos.
Right.
You know? But, and, you know, you understand why he quit the band, because from what I understand, you know, Jobson wanted him to play the same solo every night.
Jobson.
You know? I mean, that was the story. And Alan is a jazz player. I mean, he played with great jazz players, you know, before he came over here. I mean, and that was his thing. And he was adept at rock and jazz. So, and one guy that we should just mention, I know we're going off tangent here a little bit, but the guy who really was a big influence on Alan Holdsworth, Ollie Halsall. I mean, a lot. If you listen to Ollie Halsall's guitar playing in Pardo,
very similar.
I did not know that.
You agree with me, Pete?
Absolutely.
You know,
okay, I'm going to have to pay attention to that.
If you listen to the early
Lewis, he's got a very similar legato style. It's like, I mean, wasn't a household name is pretty.
And they played in Tempest together. I mean, and Ollie was a mother, and he was an incredible guitar player. And a lot of his playing rubbed off on Alan. If you listen to Alan's early stuff, it was a bit different than what he was doing later on with the legato stuff.
Yeah. So it's amazing. So this is like the third episode in a row where the mere mention of Alan Holdsworth prompted an entire like side discussion that totally derailed everything. That's what this guy brings in all of us, I think. When it's like the topic of Alan Holdsworth is so fascinating, you can't stop talking about the guy.
You're a good guitar player. Where do you rank him?
He's one of the best of all time.
Best of all time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He was also a very nice guy. Do you guys ever hang with him?
I met him once.
I met him at Mexicali at Baja Prague I remember I had the bootleg of Metal Fatigue, because at that time I couldn't really, you know, when I got it, I couldn't afford albums. And then later I bought it, and then there he was. So I went up to him, and he was at the bar, and I said, "Hey man, I just wanted to tell you, I've always felt guilty that I bootlegged your record. So can I just buy you a few drinks? I figure it'll be at least what you would get paid by the label." Right? And he started laughing, and we had a great time.
He said, "Get paid by the label? What's that?"
Exactly. He just laughed, and we just had drinks, and he was a super funny guy. And I had, you know, I didn't want to impose on him, but he was by himself. So, you know, I just had a couple of drinks. I said thanks, and I walked away. But I had a great time just hanging and just telling jokes. And he was there with Softworks playing Baja Pro.
Gotcha.
And great guy.
Yeah, my story was very similar. They were doing the Jazz Explosion tour, which was probably like late 80s. And it was him and Stanley Clarke and Randy Brecker and Steve Smith. And the show hadn't even started yet. And I come in, and there's like nobody at the bar except for this one gentleman. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, that's Alan Holdsworth. The show hadn't even started. So I walked up to him and started a little conversation with him. He was very nice. And then he's like, "I think I need to go. Cheers." Took a sip of the drink, left it on. Actually went to back.
Yeah, that sounds like him.
Yeah,
can I talk about my honorable mention?
Yes. Anybody have any honorable mentions? Yeah, Ken, go for it.
All right. So you guys want to get out pen and paper, because this is one you don't know about.
Okay. Go for it.
This is an American band.
Oh.
Master Cylinder from Fort Worth, Texas. They made this album, what was it, 1980? 1981. And this was, I guess you could call them Texas's version of the Muffins, except there's no humor involved. These guys were just straight up jazz rock players with a very, very strong Canterbury flavor. And I actually tried to reissue the album. The master tapes were lost. I tracked the band down, and they had the multi-tracks, and we were going to remix the album. But Joe Rogers, the keyboard player in the band, he had this aversion to shipping the tapes. He was afraid that something was going to happen to the tapes if he shipped them. So the project just fell apart. But if you like what we're talking about, national health, you know, Hatfield and North, maybe minus, you know, the humorous aspect, Master Cylinder, Elsewhere.
Wow.
It's a not not a particularly expensive album. Recorded in 1980. They actually recorded a second album that was never released, and probably never will be released, along with the reissue of that. So I kept it as an honorable mention simply because I wanted to confine my 5 to British bands. Cool. Otherwise, I think we could have talked about Super Sister, you know, Dutch band, had that Canterbury sound, and you know, and certainly Worthy from a musical aspect. So I guess there were others. So anyway, that was my wild card.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. Very cool. Niamh, you got any honorable mentions?
I don't. No, I just picked 5. Yeah.
Luis?
I mean, people mentioned all the ones that I had. I mean, of course, this is not. It's not like it's a lesser album, but one of the things I like about the show is that people get to listen to different titles, and then they can look them up. But of course, again, Caravan, In the Land of the Gray and the Pink. This is the definition, right? It's the reference.
You know, many years ago, I put out an album by a Canterbury influenced band, and I'm going to show it as a CD. You guys remember Volare?
Oh, yeah. I have that. Yeah, hell yeah. That's great.
So they were very much into the Canterbury sound. We had the guys from Glass Hammer produce the album. And I remember it was great when they would play live. Patrick Strauzer, the keyboard player, he would set up his keyboard on his mother's ironing board. That was his keyboard stand. He would take his mother's ironing board and he'd prop it up on the stage, and he put his synth on top of it. And yeah, they were good live. They were a good live band. They played at Prague Day. I think they played at Orion. They used to play out a bit, and unfortunately they imploded. So some of the guys I also did a band called Somnambulist, and
that's a good one. Yeah.
Well, some of the guys joined Somnambulist, but those sessions will remain unreleased. So that was kind of a shit show. But
well, nothing to do with Canterbury, but Paranormal Humidor.
That was a good album.
Very good album.
Yeah. And Chris Cornell's brother, he still owes me about $1,000. So.
Oh wow, yeah, you're not going to get that.
I think so.
That ship is sailed, my man.
Yeah. So I had a couple here that so Khan Space Shanty was also on my honorables. Matching Mole, Little Red Rooster. Another one.
Little Red Record.
Oh, Record. I'm sorry. Did I read? Yeah, Little Red Record. Gilgamesh, self-titled. That's quite good. And I had Moving Gelatin Plates also, which is a kind of a weird sort of kind of fits this whole thing.
They were kind of like a Soft Machine knockoff, really.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. Not too bad. But there's a whole bunch of other ones. But
Steve released, for people who like Gilgamesh, and I'm among them, I ordered from him. The Gilgamesh had 2 albums, and he's got a 3rd one. It's more like a looser, more aggressive live sort of album. But it didn't make it. It's been being shipped for a month, right? So I didn't have it, but I Gilgamesh is also a very good band, for sure.
Can I commend everybody for not mentioning Camel?
Yeah, they don't fit. Yeah,
they're not a Canterbury band, but they get lumped in there because Richard Sinclair was in there for 2 albums, and 2 fine albums, but not Canterbury. No. I think if you'd asked Andy Latimer if they were a Canterbury band, he said, "What are you talking about?" So everybody's to be commended, I think, for not mentioning that.
Yeah, no, they definitely don't fit. Definitely don't fit. Cool. So there you have it, everybody. Our 5 favorite Canterbury albums. We had a bit of overlap and some cool surprises, but that was to be expected, I think. There's some just classics of this style of music that I think we all kind of touched on, which is good to see. So let's, Niamh, what's going on? What's happening on your channel recently or coming up that people can look for?
Well, on Friday, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a story about all my worst experiences on Discogs, because I have a lot of them. So they're quite entertaining, but I'm planning some more proggy kind of videos this weekend with my dad and stuff like that. I think we're going to be talking about electronic music this weekend. So if that's
are you going to do show and tell with the Discog stories? You should do show and tell.
Yes.
I've got so many of them as well.
What's worse, Discogs or eBay?
At this point, I think Discogs for me. We've had some really bad experiences, proper bad experiences on Discogs as of recent.
It's pretty funny, actually. I sell on Discogs, and
so do we.
Yeah, that's the Wild West. So you buy an album there, boy, anything goes.
Yeah, I usually find that people are either really fast or very slow to reply.
For me, it's all about misgrading. When I buy albums, I'm a longtime crazy vinyl collector. So some of these people, I think that they need to get their eyes checked. So it's a lot.
I have a lot of people saying that us Brits are known for grading our albums too highly, but I think I'm pretty fair.
Well, if I could rank them, the Brits are near the bottom, but nobody beats the Italians. So
the Italians are fabulous. Their packaging is so great. They're amazing.
I'd have to find it, but it's funny you say that. I'd have to find it, but I bought a copy of the first Black Sabbath album, British Vertigo Swirl, from an Italian vendor. And it showed up, he recycled a mailer he got from Amazon. And it showed up literally cracked. The top of it cracked. I mean, and it wasn't a first pressing, it was like a second pressing, Vertigo Swirl.
That is.
And he claimed that I did it.
Of course he did.
He disputed, and then he was saying, and then he changed the story. He said that Customs did it. everybody did it, but his, but him. Not that I thought that he intentionally sent me a cracked album. He just packed it very poorly.
Right. Yeah. How would he know? Did he follow it along the entire journey that he would know that? Right.
Right. And a lot of these guys, they don't understand, especially with rare albums, to take the album out of the sleeve. You get albums with seam splits. They look like the album just exploded through the, through the cover. It's like, I just had that the other day. Guys, I bought an album and a guy, it arrived okay, but he didn't take the album out of the sleeve. And I put it in my rating for him. I gave him a positive rating, but I said, pro tip, take the album out of the sleeve when you're mailing it. Well, he sent me a private message and he ripped me. I mean, it was like,
I guess some people are just very petty. I mean, someone once sent me an album in a pizza box and it was like rattling all over the place inside the box. And I was really scared to take it out.
Yeah. Taking 2 square pieces of cardboard and taping them together and making a sandwich around the record, that's not a proper way to mail it, especially when it's going 3,000 miles.
Sure.
Yeah. I make sure I like double or triple wrap if it's going very far away.
I'll tell you where to get your mailers from. There's a place, I have to find it. There's a place in the UK that I bought mailers. And Pete, you could edit this out if you like, but if I could find it. I bought mailers from this place. They were very, very good. Lil Packaging in the UK.
I'm writing that down.
And they make record mailers, which are very good. They have bumpers on them, and they make CD mailers as well. So anyway, for a while they were shipping them to the US, but they got too expensive, so I stopped buying them.
For anybody who's selling stuff.
If you're on YouTube watching this, you're overseas, lilpackaging.com.
Yeah.
That's my pro tip for the day.
There you go. Well, thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Luis, anything, I know COVID here in the US, a lot of tours are being announced, live shows, Sonus Umbra planning anything?
Well, we're getting back together to see if we remember how to play any of your songs. And we're going to do a warm-up show in July here in Chicago. And I'm putting together an album. Also, I should announce it now if you give me a chance. A really good friend of ours and to the whole prog community, Uncle Norm, he passed away in January. He had cancer and he was sick for a while. So I just reached out to everybody that I knew in bands, people who I either toured with. And I just said, look, I want to put together a record for him. And we're going to give, it's prog. So it's not like it's going to make a lot of money. But symbolically, we want to make it so that whatever copies people buy, it all goes straight to the hospital where they do the cancer research where he was being treated. And so I got on board everybody from Magenta, Discipline, Tiles, Sonus Umbra's on, Luz Arriada. Mike Hood reunited just to do a track for this. And Gary Green is playing on it. And we have lots of, are on board. If I'm forgetting people, I know I am, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of bands. And so we are just collecting it and we're getting ready to start mastering it and just send it to the printers. And so I'll give you all the details about that, but I've been busy just working on that stuff. And on another record, it's not a Sonus Umbra record, but it's another thing that I'm working on with Andy Tillotson. So as soon as I have that, I will let you know. But that's my summer task.
I don't care what anybody says. You're a nice guy.
Yeah. Who knew?
Wow. You look at him, you think, man, but no, he's really nice
sketchy Mexican Arab. And if I wear the scarf, people in the airport will just tackle me.
Yeah, I would think.
But it has happened. It's not a joke. But but regardless, yeah. I mean, so this is what I'm doing now musically. We're rehearsing and we're putting together this album for Norm, who is a very dear friend. We miss him terribly, and
he's a good dude.
So that's what's happening in my universe right now.
Awesome, you are busy. Very cool. We're looking forward to all that. Ken, anything you want to plug that's you got for sale over on Laser's Edge that you want people to?
Well, yeah, actually, we just dropped last Friday, we dropped a new album from Subterranean Masquerade. Pete, if you didn't get it, I'll send you one, or I'll have Dave send you one. I think it's absolutely phenomenal album. We did CD, we did vinyl. We cut the vinyl at 45. Sounds amazing. And they're going to be they're going to start ramping up doing some live shows, I think, this summer. If you don't know them, they're kind of an eclectic. I mean, we'll call them a prog metal band. Some people call them a prog rock band. A lot of Middle Eastern elements. They've toured with Orphan Land. They have some of the guys from Orphan Land playing on the album, and I think it's amazing. Also, we just did band from Chicago, Aziola Cry, and do you know them, Louis?
Oh yeah, I know them very well. I'm a good friend of Tommy, the drummer.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we did their album, and it's starting to get a buzz. It's war guitar, and Jason Blake, the war guitar player, he plays his ass off, and it's and we're going to be doing on vinyl only. Wolverine did it's about a 25, 26-minute EP. We're doing it on vinyl only. It's out. We dropped it digitally on our Bandcamp page, lasersedge.bandcamp.com. You could download it in high res or in standard, 16-bit or MP3, or whatever you prefer. And I'm waiting for test pressings to show up here. And we're going to be doing a limited run, only 300 copies on vinyl. One other thing which I haven't formally announced, but I signed Ice Age. You guys remember Ice Age?
Really? Wow.
So this is a first. You're getting the exclusive. You guys are getting the exclusive. Wow. I guess everybody's getting the exclusive. So I signed Ice Age a while back, and because of COVID, it slowed everything down. But the guys sent me demos, and it was great. It was Ice Age, and so I'm hoping that we'll really start doing promo on it, well after the summer. It's going to be a 2022 release, okay. But and we'll start making formal announcements and leaking out information as it moves along. Right now they're fighting among themselves what the new logo should look like and stuff like that.
That's like 20 years in the making, man. Holy cow.
Yeah, but Josh still can sing and play, and all those guys. It's all those guys, and it sounds like Ice Age, and that's what people like. I think we talk about Pete. I know you like prog metal. I like prog metal. We talk about that, and it's like there's a certain sound that we when this whole genre kind of formulated, when it advanced beyond Dream Theater and Fate's Warning and Queensryche, there are a lot of those bands from the 90s and the 2000s that had a certain sound and that we all kind of embraced, and we've gotten away from that. I like some of those bands. I still like those bands, and when I heard the Ice Age, I heard from Ice Age, I was like, yeah, man, count me in. So
yeah, great band. Those cool, like almost like Styx harmonies,
Yeah, absolutely.
Catchy hooks.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not a Styx fan, but again, Anthony, he's like, he's got the Ken Golden voodoo doll out right now. He's putting pins in it, But yeah. So anyway, so that's an exclusive. Cool. So Sea of Tranquility exclusive.
Great news.
We're gonna be working on that.
Awesome. So a lot of good stuff to look forward to, everybody, from everybody here. Let's see, on the channel here, we've got tomorrow is What's Hot with Sea of Tranquility Day. So we've got probably like 5 or 6 review episodes of all sorts of new stuff that's come out. So check out the channel for that. And Thursday, we've got the Monsters Den. Jeff Coleman, guitarist extraordinaire, is coming on the show. We're going to do an interview with Jeff. He's got a brand new album that's also coming out. I have it here somewhere. It's here somewhere, but so check that out on Thursday. Friday, Martin Popoff is in the house, and then some other stuff over the weekend. And then before you know it, the whole week begins once again. So stay tuned for all that and more. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Luis, Niamh, and Ken, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.